With a week to go now until the Alberta election, there is a new warning this morning about the province's hard-hit energy industry. Polls suggest Alberta's economy is the ballot box issue in the vote. And now a report is warning that the province's oil patch, already hit hard by thousands of job losses, is on track to lose thousands more. That's our lead story this morning, and both Scott and Michael here to take us through the story. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Scott, you get to lead us off here with the warning. This new report that's come out with thousands of job losses additionally expected.
Yeah, and this is additionally in addition to the thousands of jobs already lost, and it's a pretty dire warning. And this just out this morning. If we take a look at the numbers, they're pretty stark. Thousands of them are involved. 9,600 in particular is expected to be lost this year alone in 2019. This is part of a wider loss of jobs across all oil-producing provinces, or 12,500 jobs. And we're looking at individual. This is according to research group Petro LMI. Oil and gas field jobs, 9% expected there. They're going to be the hardest hit, thousands there. Jobs in exploration production, oil sands workers losing their jobs. Now, already there's a telling sign as well amongst oil drillers. These are big, heavy rigs that have to get into the frozen bush. And in the first quarter, there's only a third of them out there. And this is the time they have to be out there. And this is according to the Canadian Association of Oil Well Drillers Contractors. And so these losses are on top of already bigger losses by the industry already. And for example, take a look at this. Since 2014, 23% of all jobs have been lost in the industry. That's about 226,000 back in 2014. Now it's down to about 173,000 workers, so that's a loss of 50,000. And this is despite all this and this prediction going forward, despite about a 30% surge in the price of oil in the first quarter. So some pretty dire warnings. And this is an industry that plans for the long term. So some pretty sobering numbers this morning.
So we have jobs, we have the economy, we have the oil patch being, Michael, now really the central issue in the provincial election campaign, 1 week from the vote. And on this day, as it turns out, the Senate committee looking at legislation that bears directly on this part of the economy is in Calgary today.
Absolutely. And we're talking about the Senate committee as it makes way across the country, Heather, and Calgary being the latest stop. And really what they're doing in Calgary is asking a local opinion on the government's Bill C-69. Now, that is Ottawa's response essentially to the court decision that put a stop to the Trans Mountain project. It stopped it last summer, saying that the consultation process that the National Energy Board was deeply flawed. So here is the hope of the bill. Take a look at this board, because with this bill, what the government's hoping to do is replace how projects are reviewed and approved. The process should fall under this bill under a new body instead of the National Energy Board, and it would bolster, says the government, consultations with interested parties, among them Indigenous communities and industry. And the Trudeau government argues that the new process will help address concerns earlier and prevent court rulings like the one that has delayed Trans Mountain. But for many Albertans suffering through job losses, as we heard from Scott, it has become a symbol of Ottawa responding with a bureaucratic process instead of an immediate action to help stent the bleeding in the oil patch. So the economy becoming a big issue, the biggest issue right now in the Alberta election, with the NDP leader Rachel Notley saying that she's confident that an approval for Trans Mountain will happen by the end of the May and will help lift the industry. The United Conservative leader Jason Kenney saying he is ready to turn off the taps to BC if they don't get on board with a pipeline. Take a listen to the two leading contenders in the Alberta vote right now.
Of course, it's always a risk to predict the future, but honestly, I would bet my mortgage. As I said earlier today, I'd bet my political future. I think we will have shovels back in the ground this fall.
We'll turn it into a real law, indicating to the government and New Democrats in Victoria that if they block our energy, we are prepared to use that. And with gas prices in Vancouver today pushing $1.70 a liter, this is a very strong point of leverage.
So essentially hearing on the ground there from the NDP leader, trust us, the process is going to happen. We're going to get the shovels back into the ground to get jobs in Alberta. As we heard from the UCP leader saying that he's ready to go harder against the opponents of pipelines. But really, if there are more job losses, as this report is saying that's going to happen, obviously this becomes a greater concern in this 1 week left to the campaign. And as the Senate committee lands on the ground in Calgary, it's going to be very interesting to see what type of earful they get, because many people are very concerned about their livelihoods and economic existence right now.
On the Rachel Notley point, she made that point that she expects approval to come before the end of May yesterday, and talked about how she'll be making the case of how this legislation hurts the Alberta economy very forcefully before that very Senate committee. She testifies by video link, 11 o'clock local, 9 o'clock Eastern, so we'll have a lot of coverage of that ahead. Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.